The alien craft floated silently in the endless void, its scanners releasing pulses of energy that swept across the human warship ahead. For decades, the Vurian scout vessels had been tracking mankind, studying their reckless wars, their relentless hunger for expansion, and their stubborn refusal to yield to the galactic order. To the Varians, humanity had always been little more than a primitive species, violent, irrational, and incapable of becoming a serious threat. They had seen their crude weapons before: ballistic shells, unsophisticated energy beams, and nuclear devices that barely scratched the surface of true galactic firepower. For centuries, humanity was dismissed as wild and chaotic, too driven by emotion to rise as a real force. But the data coming back from their scans of this particular human ship froze the crew in dread. "Hi, Captain," one of the bridge officers stammered, his spines flattening in fear. "You need to look at this." High Captain Zorth moved forward, his yellow eyes narrowing as he examined the readouts. What appeared before him sent a cold shiver down his spine. The human warship, designation Indomitable, was not a normal vessel. It was something else entirely. Not merely a ship, but a fortress, a floating monster of war that defied every known standard of design. Its hull was not forged from standard alloys. Instead, it was layered with exotic materials engineered to absorb and redirect energy attacks. Its armor was so impossibly thick that it suggested humanity had built it to endure sieges beyond imagination. And then there were the weapons. Zortha's throat tightened as he read line after line of armament analysis. The Indomitable bristled with devastating power. Railguns capable of launching slugs at near-light velocity. Plasma lances strong enough to slice through the hull of the mightiest warships in seconds. Missile banks, thousands of them, each carrying warheads that didn't just detonate, but tore space itself apart, collapsing shields and rending armor as if it were paper. Yet even those horrors were not the worst discovery. The real terror lay in the secondary systems. The humans had engineered weapons not simply to destroy ships, but to annihilate the very crews inside. Boarding drones armed with monomolecular blades and viral hacking codes. Nanite swarms programmed to consume flesh and metal alike. And then, something even darker, classified as exo-troopers. Fallen human soldiers, resurrected as cybernetic monsters, their broken bodies enhanced with enough weaponry to level entire cities. The Vurian officer turned pale. This isn't a warship, High Captain. It's a nightmare given form." Zorth could not tear his gaze away. Humanity had always fought like cornered predators, using whatever means it took to survive. They had no limits, no restraint. And now, they had built a machine that reflected that ruthless nature in its purest form. A sickening realization hit him. The Galactic Union had debated for years whether to guide humanity into their fold, or wipe them out before they became dangerous. Many had dismissed the humans as too disorganized, too unworthy of attention. That had been a mistake. The humans had not been stumbling blindly. They had been preparing for war. And now, they were ready. Zorth swallowed, forcing his voice steady. "Shut down the scanners. Power down all weapons. Send a message to the homeworld." "What should we tell them?" an officer asked cautiously. Zortha's voice was low, almost shaking. "Tell them, we must never provoke the humans." The bridge fell silent. Before them, the Indomitable hung motionless in the void, utterly still, like a predator watching its prey. The crew obeyed Zortha's orders at once, shutting down weapons and ceasing all scans. But it was already too late. The human warship had noticed them. A ripple of strange energy shimmered across its hull, and a transmission cut through their comms. The voice was cold, mechanical, yet unmistakably human. "Unidentified vessel. You have been scanning a Terran warship. State your purpose, immediately." The Vurian crew froze. Their stealth systems were flawless. No species had ever detected them before. Yet the humans had. And they were not pleased. Zortha's mind raced. If they answered wrongly, this nightmare vessel would erase them in seconds. He was certain of it. He drew a deep breath, forced his spines flat, and gave the order. Open a channel. No hostility. Under any circumstances. A click echoed as the link opened. This is High Captain Zorth of the Vurian Exploration Fleet, he said carefully. We mean no harm. We were only observing. There was silence. Then the human voice returned, carrying a trace of mockery. Observing, huh? Let me guess, you thought we wouldn't notice. Thought your cloaking tech made you invisible. A pit formed in Zortha's stomach. They had seen right through them. That was not our intention, he lied smoothly. We monitor many civilizations. Yours simply caught our interest. Another pause. Then their sensors shifted, warning alarms flashed. The Indomitable was powering up. Engines ignited with unnatural brilliance, weapons came online, targeting systems locked onto their ship. Not just one system, dozens. Firing solutions overlapped, predicting every possible maneuver they might make. If the humans chose to attack, there would be no escape. The voice spoke again. Here's my suggestion. Pick another civilization to spy on. The words were calm, but beneath them was a threat sharper than any weapon. Zorth clenched his jaw. He had underestimated them. The entire Galactic Union had underestimated them. The humans weren't simply another young race clawing their way up the ladder. They were already at the top. And now, they were letting him live. Understood, Zorth said quietly. We will depart at once. A long silence followed. Then the human voice softened, just slightly. Good choice. Now run along, little scout. And next time, remember who owns this sector. The transmission cut. Get us out of here, Zorth snapped. The Vurian scout ship leapt into its jump drive, vanishing into the void. Stars streaked past the viewports as Zorth finally exhaled a trembling breath. Humanity was not just dangerous. They were something far worse. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Vurian scout ship drifted through hyperspace, its crew shaken into silence. None dared speak as the stars blurred past. High Captain Zorth sat rigid in his command chair, his claws tightening on the armrests. His mind replayed every second of the encounter with the human warship, and with each memory his unease grew heavier. That vessel should not exist. By every standard of galactic law, by every precedent set by the Union, humanity should not have been capable of constructing such a monstrosity. Yet there it was, the Indomitable, floating in the void like a predator unchallenged, bristling with weapons no fledgling species had any right to possess. The officer at navigation finally broke the silence. High Captain, what will the Council say when they hear this? Zortha's jaw tightened. The Council. They had long mocked his reports. When he warned them of humanity's growing aggression, they dismissed him as paranoid. When he spoke of the humans' unyielding will to survive, they laughed. And when he suggested that Earth was preparing for war, they ignored him entirely. Now, there would be no ignoring it. They will listen, Zorth muttered at last. They must. If they don't, he trailed off, his eyes darkening. The Union itself could fall. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their spines flattening against their backs. For ages, the Galactic Union had stood as the ultimate power, unifying species, enforcing peace, and crushing rebellions with overwhelming might. No empire, no coalition, no rogue fleet had ever come close to challenging it. But humanity was not like the others. The humans were something else entirely. When the Vurian ship dropped out of hyperspace, the capital world loomed before them. Vast orbital stations glittered above the planet, and the surface below pulsed with sprawling cities of light. The Council awaited them, an assembly of the galaxy's oldest, most powerful species. Zorth strode into the council chamber, his scales bristling, his breath steady. He had faced hostile armadas, deadly predators, and even civil uprisings, but never had he felt pressure like this. The chamber's immense dome echoed with the voices of dozens of delegates, each one representing a world bound under the Union's banner. "Hi, Captain Zorth," the moderator's voice boomed, silencing the room. "You bring urgent news, we are told. Speak." Zorth bowed his head respectfully, then raised his gaze. "Honored Council, what I bring is not merely urgent. It is a warning of survival itself. Humanity has become a threat unlike any we have faced before." Murmurs spread instantly, the delegates whispering among themselves. One, a reptilian elder with silver scales, snorted dismissively. "Humanity," he scoffed. "The primitive savages from Sol? They quarrel endlessly, they fracture into nations, they cling to superstition. They cannot even unify themselves. You overestimate them, Zorth." Zortha's spines stiffened. "With respect, Counselor, you are wrong. I have seen it with my own eyes. They are no longer primitive. They are no longer weak. They have built war machines that rival anything in this chamber, and worse, their spirit fuels them in ways you cannot comprehend." Another delegate, a tall avian creature, tilted her head. "Machines? Details, Captain. What exactly have you seen?" The chamber dimmed as Zorth activated a holodisplay. Images flickered to life, the indomitable, looming vast and terrible in the void. Gasps echoed through the chamber as its silhouette rotated, revealing its impossible bulk and monstrous weaponry. "This," Zorth said firmly, "is what humanity has become." The room erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, some in disbelief, others in fear, others still demanding evidence of fraud. The moderator raised a hand for silence. "Explain its systems, Captain." Zorth did. He spoke of the railguns, the plasma lances, the warheads that tore apart the fabric of space. He described the nanite swarms, the cybernetic soldiers, the weapons designed not merely for victory but for annihilation. With each word, the chamber grew quieter, until silence hung thick in the air. Finally, an elder counselor spoke, his voice trembling. "If what you say is true, then humanity has violated the treaties of technological restraint. Their advancements outpace their years. Someone must have given them knowledge they should not possess." "No," Zorth said coldly. "This is their own doing. Their ingenuity. Their desperation. Humanity does not need help to become monsters. They forge monsters themselves." A shiver passed through the delegates. The avian delegate spread her wings uneasily. "Then the solution is clear. We cannot allow such a species to grow unchecked. The Union must intervene. We must strike first." Her words triggered an uproar, some shouting in agreement, others warning against war. The chamber shook with the force of their argument. Zorth stood motionless, watching. He knew where this would lead. The Council had underestimated humanity for centuries. Now, faced with undeniable proof, their arrogance would drive them toward one of two paths: desperate war, or fearful submission. Either way, the galaxy would burn. That night, Zorth walked alone along the capital's sky bridges. Towering spires stretched into the clouds, their lights reflecting across his dark eyes. He looked down at the bustling world below, trillions living under the Union's banner, blissfully unaware of the storm approaching. He remembered the human transmission, the cold, mocking voice telling him to pick another civilization to spy on. The words still haunted him. Not because they were arrogant but because they were true. Humanity knew exactly what they were doing. They were no longer prey. They were predators. And Zorth feared that soon, the galaxy would learn this lesson in blood. The council chamber had not been this divided in centuries. 4 hours, the delegates hurled arguments across the vast dome, their voices rising like clashing storms. Some demanded an immediate preemptive strike against Earth, others warned that such an action could ignite a war the Union was not prepared to fight. High Captain Zorth remained silent, standing at the center like a shadow among giants. He had given them the truth. What they chose to do with it was now beyond him. Yet as he watched the chaos unfold, he could already see the seeds of disaster taking root. Finally, the moderator struck the floor with his staff, the sound echoing like thunder. Enough. The matter of humanity will be decided by vote. The chamber hushed. Every delegate sat forward, their expressions grim. Option 1, the moderator declared, is assimilation. Humanity will be brought into the Union by force if necessary, their weapons confiscated, their worlds restricted, their fleets dismantled. Option 2 is eradication. Humanity will be removed entirely from the galactic stage, before their fire consumes us all. The words hung heavy in the air. Zortha's chest tightened. He had hoped, foolishly, that someone might suggest peace, negotiation, or even cautious alliance. But no. To the Council, peace with humanity was already impossible. The vote began. One by one, the delegates cast their decisions. Some chose assimilation, their voices sharp with fear. Others demanded extermination, their tones dripping with hatred. When the tally ended, the result was clear. Assimilation. Barely. Humanity would not be destroyed outright. Instead, the Union would mobilize fleets to surround Earth, enforce compliance, and strip them of their weapons. To Zorth, it was no victory. It was simply a slower death. He stepped forward. Counselors, you are making a mistake. Humanity will not bend. They will not accept chains. If you attempt to cage them, they will fight with every breath they have. And when they fight, you will see why I call them predators. His words were met with cold silence. The moderator narrowed his eyes. Your warning is noted, High Captain. But the Council has spoken. Humanity will be brought under control, whether they wish it or not. The session ended. The delegates filed out, their robes trailing like shadows. Zorth remained alone in the vast chamber, his claws clenched. He could already hear the echo of humanity's answer. It would not be silence. It would be fire. The First Fleet was assembled within weeks. Hundreds of Union warships gathered at the edge of Sol, their shimmering hulls reflecting starlight as they tightened their formation. To any other world, the sight would have been overwhelming, a demonstration of power so absolute that resistance would have seemed foolish. But Earth was not any other world. The humans did not send envoys. They did not broadcast pleas. They did not beg for mercy. Instead, they answered with silence. And then, their ships emerged. Massive, angular, brutal things of black steel and glowing red engines. The Indomitable led the formation, its vast frame blotting out the stars. But it was not alone. Dozens of others followed, sister ships of equal terror, bristling with weapons that screamed defiance. The Union fleets wavered. Even the most disciplined captains hesitated as the human armada came into view. Their size, their sheer presence, was unlike anything the Union had expected. A transmission cut across all channels. "This is Admiral Kane of the Terran Defense Command." The voice rang out, steady and cold. "You come here to cage us. You come here to dictate how we live, how we fight, how we survive. But hear this clearly, Earth does not kneel. We are not subjects. We are not slaves. If you raise your weapons against us, you will pay the price." The Union captains exchanged nervous glances. The Council's orders had been clear: force compliance, dismantle the weapons, bring humanity under control. But now, standing face to face with the Terran fleet, doubt gnawed at their resolve. The moderator's envoy, a sleek silver ship, stepped forward and broadcast a single ultimatum. Surrender your fleets. Disarm your weapons. Submit to Union authority, or be destroyed. Silence answered. For a moment, the void itself seemed to hold its breath. Then Admiral Kane spoke again, his voice a quiet blade. "Very well." The human fleet powered up. Railguns glowed, plasma lances burned, missile bays unlocked. The Indomitable's engines roared, and for the first time in centuries, the Union realized what it felt like to face true defiance. The war for humanity's survival had begun. The silence after Admiral Kane's final words lasted only a heartbeat. Then the void exploded. Union warships opened fire first. Beams of searing energy lanced across space, Missiles streaked like burning comets, and shockwaves rippled as fleets clashed in fury. It was the display of power the Union had used for centuries to crush rebellion after rebellion. But this time, it was different. The human fleet did not scatter, did not retreat. They surged forward like predators unleashed. The Indomitable absorbed the first volley of plasma fire, its exotic armor glowing but holding strong. Then its railguns answered, titanic slugs ripping across the battlefield, tearing through the shields of Union cruisers as though they were paper. One ship disintegrated instantly, its hull shattered into molten fragments. The Union captains panicked. Their shields, tested against every known weapon, were failing against humanity's brutal designs. Missiles tore through their formations, detonating with impossible force. Plasma lances carved glowing scars into their hulls, turning once proud battleships into burning wrecks. And worse, boarding drones launched. Tiny, dart-like craft pierced Union hulls, deploying swarms of machines that skittered through corridors, slicing through bulkheads, hunting crew. Screams echoed across comms as nanites consumed systems, devouring both flesh and metal in a storm of horror. It was not a battle. It was slaughter. On the Union flagship, Admiral Varen watched in disbelief as his fleet crumbled. "Impossible," he muttered, his voice breaking. "They are primitives. How can they?" "Admiral," a lieutenant cried. "We've lost the 7th line. The humans have broken our flank." The display before them showed chaos. Union formations collapsed, captains screaming for reinforcements, ships vanishing in fire. And at the heart of it all, the Indomitable pressed forward, every gun blazing, every missile bay emptying with merciless rhythm. Admiral Kane's voice cut through the chaos, broadcast to every ship. "You thought we would bow. You thought we would beg. But humanity does not kneel. We survive. We endure. And when you come for us, we fight." His words were not a boast. They were a promise, spoken with cold certainty. Hours passed, but the result never changed. The Union's superior numbers meant nothing against the humans' ferocity. One by one, their ships fell. Some fled into hyperspace, abandoning the battlefield entirely. Others surrendered, silencing their weapons, hoping for mercy that would not come. Finally, Admiral Varen gave the only order left. "Retreat. All remaining ships, retreat." The battered survivors fled, their once proud armada reduced to a fraction of its strength. Behind them, Earth's skies glowed with victory fire, and the Terran fleet held formation, scarred, but unbroken. The first clash had ended, and the Union had lost. In the days that followed, shockwaves rippled across the galaxy. News of the battle spread faster than light itself. Entire worlds whispered in disbelief. The humans had faced the Union, and won. Species long crushed beneath Union dominance trembled with new hope. Rebellions that had lain dormant for generations stirred once more. If humanity could stand against the Council's might, perhaps others could too. The Union, for the first time in centuries, looked weak. And humanity had made its message clear: they would not be caged. On Earth, Admiral Kane stood before his war council, his face grim. Holograms of the destroyed Union fleet shimmered around him, but there was no triumph in his eyes. "They will come again," he said quietly. "This was only the first wave. The Council will not forgive this. They will gather everything they have, and when they return, it will not be to threaten us. It will be to erase us." His officers nodded. They understood. Humanity had declared itself free, but that freedom came at a cost. The war had only just begun. Kane looked at the stars beyond the viewport, his voice barely above a whisper. "Let them come. We are ready." The retreating Union fleet limped back into Council space like wounded beasts. Dozens of ships had been lost, hundreds more crippled. Entire squadrons simply never returned. Their absence spoke louder than any report could. The council chamber filled with uproar the moment the survivors transmitted their account. Delegates shouted, their voices overlapping in panic and outrage. The Union, undefeated for millennia, had been shattered by a species they once mocked as primitives. High Captain Zorth watched from the gallery, his eyes heavy with grim certainty. He had warned them. Again and again, he had warned them. And now, humanity had proven him right in fire and blood. "They struck without mercy," cried Admiral Varen, his voice cracking as he addressed the chamber. "They wield weapons beyond comprehension, railguns that tore through our shields, drones that infested our ships, soldiers enhanced beyond natural limits. We were slaughtered." Some delegates hissed in disbelief, refusing to accept it. Others trembled, fear etched across their features. But one thing was clear: the Union's aura of invincibility was broken. The moderator slammed his staff against the floor, demanding order. "This cannot stand. Humanity has defied the Union. They must be crushed, completely. Every fleet, every resource, must be mobilized to ensure their annihilation." But another voice rose, sharp and cautious. "And what if we fail again? What if this war becomes the spark that ignites rebellion across our empire?" Already, whispers spread through the outer colonies. "If humanity can resist us, others will follow." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. The truth was undeniable. Humanity's defiance had done more than wound the Union. It had inspired billions. Zorth stepped forward, his voice steady. "You see now. They are not like other species. You cannot threaten them into submission, nor erase them with a show of force. The more you push them, the harder they will strike back. Humanity thrives under pressure. They rise when others would fall. That is their curse, and their gift." The delegates stared at him, some with fury, some with fear. "So what do you suggest, Captain?" one finally demanded. Zorth hesitated. He knew the answer, but he also knew the council would never accept it. Still, he spoke the truth. "Do not fight them. Ally with them. Bind them to the Union not with chains, but with respect. Treat them as equals, because if you make them your enemy, they will become the end of you." Laughter erupted from several corners of the chamber. "Ally with them? With savages who butchered our fleets? You are mad, Zorth." But others did not laugh. They sat in silence, their minds weighing his words. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kane convened with leaders of the Terran Defense Command. The War Council chamber glowed with holographic projections of Union space, fleet positions, and intercepted communications. "They will not stop," Kane said flatly. "The Council will return, and next time they will bring everything they have. Entire sectors will be emptied to fuel their armada. They will not forgive what we've done." One general clenched his fists. "Then we strike first. Take the fight to them before they regroup. Show the galaxy that humanity does not wait for death, we deliver it." Another officer shook her head. "That would stretch us thin. Our fleets are powerful, yes, but limited. If we push too far, we may expose Earth itself." The debate raged, voices clashing just as fiercely as the battle outside Sol had. Some demanded preemptive war, others urged caution. All knew the truth: no path was safe. Kane raised a hand for silence. "We will not act in haste. But neither will we sit idle. Humanity has entered a new age. We are no longer hidden, no longer mocked. The galaxy watches us now, and we must show them exactly who we are." In the following weeks, the Terran fleet expanded at an unprecedented rate. Shipyards blazed with activity, factories thundered day and night, and entire generations were pulled into service. Where the Union relied on tradition, bureaucracy, and arrogance, humanity relied on desperation and willpower. And desperation was the greatest weapon of all. From the outer colonies, whispers spread like wildfire. Rebellions stirred, inspired by Earth's defiance. Old grudges against the Union reignited. For the first time in centuries, cracks appeared in the Empire's foundation. High Captain Zorth watched these developments from afar, unease gnawing at his soul. He alone understood the truth that no one wished to say aloud. The war was no longer about humanity alone. The war would decide the fate of the entire galaxy. The galaxy had not felt this restless in ages. In distant colonies, workers whispered in hushed tones. In hidden corners of starports, smugglers spoke of hope. On worlds that had lived under Union boots for centuries, banners of rebellion began to stir again. All of it, because of humanity. For the first time, the Union's enemies had proof that the Council could bleed. High Captain Zorth stood aboard a neutral station orbiting a barren moon. His gaze lingered on a small datapad that replayed the same scene over and over, the destruction of the Union's first fleet by Earth's defenders. He could not stop watching it, though each time, it filled him with the same cold dread. Beside him, a Vurian officer spoke softly. "Do you believe they can win?" Zorth did not answer immediately. He remembered humanity's history, their wars, their resilience, their endless hunger for survival. He remembered the look of Admiral Kane's eyes on the holoscreen, sharp, unyielding, merciless. At last, he whispered, "They can win battles. But wars are not won by strength alone. Wars are won by endurance. And humanity has endured every nightmare their world has thrown at them. If anyone can outlast the Union, it is them." The officer fell silent, his scales paling. On Earth, Admiral Kane stood inside a command center deep beneath the surface. Walls hummed with energy as holographic fleets rotated in the air. Generals, scientists, and commanders surrounded him, each one delivering reports in tense, clipped voices. "Production of dreadnoughts has tripled," one engineer reported. "The colonies on Mars and Titan are supplying resources non-stop. Civilian volunteers are enlisting faster than we can train them." Another voice added, "We've upgraded cybernetic units. The new generation of enhanced soldiers is ready for deployment. Stronger, faster, more adaptive than before." Kane nodded. Humanity was transforming at a speed that stunned even him. Fear had done what centuries of unity could not, pulled them together as one people. Nations, once divided, now funneled every resource into the Terran Defense Command. But Kane also knew this unity came with a price. Every ship built, every weapon forged, pushed them deeper into a path that had only two endings: victory or extinction. Far across the stars, the Union prepared as well. Entire sectors mobilized, drawing fleets from every loyal world. Factories churned, shipyards stretched to their limits, and entire species were drafted into service. The Council no longer underestimated Earth, they feared it. But fear, for the Union, turned into rage. In the Council chamber, the moderator's voice thundered. "We cannot allow this cancer to spread. If humanity's rebellion inspires others, the Union collapses. Everything we built, gone. This is not a war for dominance. This is a war for survival." Delegates roared in agreement. Orders were sent. The largest military mobilization in centuries began. The galaxy was dividing into two sides, and every species would be forced to choose. On the edge of known space, humanity struck first. Small Terran fleets launched raids against Union convoys, ambushing supply lines, stealing resources, and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Colonies under the Union's thumb found themselves liberated overnight, their skies filled with the black hulls of Terran warships. The Council raged at these incursions, but their fury could not hide the truth: humanity was winning hearts and minds. Where the Union ruled through fear, Earth offered defiance and freedom. Entire worlds began sending secret transmissions to Admiral Kane, offering support, information, even soldiers. And slowly, quietly, a resistance movement was born, not just human, but galactic. One night, Kane stood alone at the viewport of the Indomitable. Stars glittered before him, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought of Earth, its blue oceans, its stormy skies, its fragile beauty. For centuries, they had been small, fragile, ignored. Now, they carried the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders. A voice came from behind him. General Rao, his second-in-command, stepped forward. "They say you've started something bigger than any war." They say you've lit a fire the Union cannot extinguish. Kane's reflection in the glass did not move. His voice was quiet. Fires consume everything, Rao. And once it begins, no one can control where it spreads. He turned, eyes hard as steel. But one thing is certain. Humanity will not be the ones to burn. The Union's armada emerged from hyperspace like a storm swallowing the stars. Thousands of warships stretched across the void, an ocean of steel and firepower unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. At its core, titanic dreadnoughts bristled with weapons powerful enough to level continents. Around them swarmed cruisers, destroyers, and carriers, their engines glowing like suns. This was no fleet. This was judgment. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Kane studied the incoming wave. His officers watched the tactical displays in grim silence as red markers filled the screen. The Union had come prepared to erase humanity, not merely subdue it. They mean to finish us in one strike, General Rao muttered. Kane's jaw tightened. Then we show them what it means to face humanity united. The order went out. Across the Sol system, Terran warships powered up, their hulls shimmering with fresh armor plating. Planetary defenses roared to life, railguns buried in moons, orbital cannons hidden in asteroids, fleets of drones rising from launch bays. Earth itself, once vulnerable, now bristled with weapons like a fortress world. The Union broadcast its demand. This is your final chance. Surrender your weapons. Submit to Union law. Or be destroyed. Kane replied with a single word. Never. And with that, the stars ignited. The first volleys shook the heavens. Union beams tore through space, missiles lit the void in burning arcs, and Terran guns thundered back. The clash was apocalyptic. Entire ships vaporized in seconds, their crews turned to ash. The Indomitable surged into the heart of the storm, its massive cannons firing in relentless rhythm. Union cruisers fell before it, their shields collapsing under the onslaught. But humanity paid dearly too. Dozens of Terran frigates were torn apart, their wreckage scattering across the black sky. Yet for every loss, more humans fought with savage fury. Boarding pods slammed into Union hulls, disgorging enhanced soldiers who carved through corridors with brutal precision. Cybernetic warriors tore apart defenses, while human engineers hacked enemy systems mid-battle, turning the Union's own weapons against them. The battlefield became chaos incarnate. High Captain Zorth, aboard a distant observation vessel, watched the carnage unfold. His chest ached as Union ships exploded one after another. But his fear was not only for the Union, it was for the galaxy itself. Humanity fought like no other. They embraced destruction. Where most species recoiled from chaos, humanity thrived in it. They are not fighting to win, Zorth whispered. They are fighting to survive. And survival makes them unstoppable. Hours passed. Still the war raged. The void was littered with burning hulks, shattered fleets, and drifting corpses. The Union pressed forward with numbers, but humanity answered with desperation, innovation, and unyielding will. At the height of battle, the Indomitable broke through the Union line. Admiral Kane stood at the command dais, his voice calm amid the storm. Target their flagship. End this. The Terran fleet concentrated its fire. Railguns thundered, plasma lances shrieked, and waves of missiles battered the Union dreadnought. At last, with a shuddering roar, the massive vessel cracked apart, detonating in a fireball that lit the stars. The sight rippled through the battlefield. Union ships faltered. Some fled. Others fought with renewed desperation, unwilling to face shame. But the truth was undeniable. Humanity had stood against the greatest armada the Union had ever gathered, and they had not fallen. As the battle waned, Admiral Kane surveyed the wreckage. Victory was theirs, but it was costly. Countless Terran ships lay broken, countless lives extinguished. Earth had survived, but it bled. Still, Kane's eyes burned with iron resolve. They will come again, he said quietly. And each time, they will bring more. But so will we. Because humanity does not fade. We rise. In the distance, The stars burned bright, as though the galaxy itself was watching. And it was. For across countless worlds, news of the battle spread. The Union's aura of invincibility was gone. Rebellions stirred louder, courage flared brighter. Humanity had become more than a threat. They had become a symbol. The battlefield of Sol hung in silence after the storm. Burned wreckage drifted endlessly, the corpses of ships and soldiers turning in the void like monuments to war. Humanity had survived, but survival came at a cost written in blood and fire. Admiral Kane stood on the Indomitable's bridge, his eyes fixed on the glowing blue sphere of Earth below. It still lived. Against all odds, it still lived. But around him, officers whispered the grim numbers: fleets reduced to half strength, millions dead, colonies scarred. This was only the beginning, Kane said, his voice flat, carrying the weight of truth. The Union will return. Stronger. Angrier. More desperate. We've won battles, not the war. General Rao's voice was low, but steady. Then we prepare. And when they come again, we make them regret it. Across the galaxy, the shock spread like wildfire. News of humanity's defiance raced faster than light. On worlds crushed beneath Union rule, celebrations erupted in secret. For the first time in living memory, the Council had been challenged and defeated. The effect was unstoppable. Colonies rose in protest. Slave species whispered of rebellion. Even Union allies began to question whether their masters were truly invincible. The galaxy trembled. And humanity, once mocked as primitive, now carried a new name whispered across countless tongues: the Unbroken. But in the council chamber, fear gave way to fury. The moderator slammed his staff down, his voice booming through the hall. This cannot stand. Humanity has become a plague. They ignite rebellion everywhere they go. If we do not crush them utterly, the Union will fracture. Delegates shouted in agreement, but others hesitated. The losses were undeniable. 2 great fleets had been broken in Sol's orbit. Could the Union afford a third? High Captain Zorth stood before them, his voice calm but edged with warning. You are fighting a war you do not understand. Humanity is not like us. They do not break when pressed, they sharpen. Every attack makes them stronger. Every loss hardens their resolve. If you continue this war, it will not be humanity that falls. It will be the Union. His words echoed, but few wanted to believe them. Pride and arrogance blinded most. Orders were issued. Armies conscripted. War machines churned to life. The Council would not stop until Earth was dust. Back on Earth, Kane's War Council gathered in a chamber buried beneath the crust. Maps of star systems flickered above them, red and blue markers shifting constantly. Scientists reported breakthroughs, new weapons, faster drives, stronger armor. Engineers unveiled fresh prototypes of war machines built for one purpose: survival. But Kane knew it was not enough. Humanity was powerful, yes, but the Union commanded entire galaxies. Numbers alone would crush them if they weren't careful. So Kane chose a different path. We will not simply defend, he declared. We will strike. Every convoy, every fleet, every world that serves the Union. We will bleed them dry until they can no longer stand. The room fell silent, the weight of his words pressing down like gravity. It was a strategy born not of arrogance, but of necessity. Humanity could not match the Union in numbers. But they could make every battle cost more than the Union could afford. And slowly, piece by piece, grind an empire into dust. In the shadows, something larger began to stir. Not just rebellion, not just defiance, but alliance. Species long divided began sending envoys to Earth. Secret councils met on hidden moons. Messages whispered across encrypted channels: if humanity fights, we fight too. For the first time in centuries, the Union's enemies had a rallying point. Humanity was no longer just defending Earth. They were leading a revolution. That night, Admiral Kane returned to the viewport of the Indomitable. Stars glittered coldly, uncaring of the lives lost below them. Yet for Kane, they did not seem indifferent, they seemed like witnesses. Rao joined him, voice low. Do you ever wonder why us, Admiral? Why humanity? Why now? Kane's gaze did not waver. Because the galaxy forgot something. They forgot what survival looks like. They forgot what desperation creates. We didn't. He turned, his voice a vow. We are the storm they never expected. And we will not stop until the Union falls. The war no longer belonged only to Earth. It had spilled into every corner of the galaxy. Wherever Union banners flew, they now faced fire. Rebellions erupted on distant colonies, supply convoys vanished into ambushes, and slave worlds rose against their masters. And everywhere, one name was whispered like a spark passed from mouth to mouth. Humanity. They were no longer seen as prey. They were no longer the forgotten race of a quiet world. They had become the symbol of resistance, the proof that even the mighty Union could be wounded. Admiral Kane studied reports as they poured across his command table. Stars glowed above him in holographic constellations, each one marked with shifting red and blue lines. His fleet was expanding, but so was the chaos. General Rao pointed to a cluster of red systems. The Union is stretching itself thin. They're trying to put down rebellions everywhere at once. If we strike here, his finger tapped the edge of a trade corridor, we cut off 3 sectors from their supplies. It will cripple them. Others argued for caution. Humanity had won great victories, but the Union was still vast, endless. For every fleet destroyed, another rose from its shipyards. Kane listened silently, his face carved in iron. At last, he spoke. We are fighting more than the Union. We are fighting time. Every day we survive, more species rise. Every world we liberate becomes another ally. We don't need to defeat the Union in one battle, we need to make them collapse from within. The council fell quiet. The strategy was dangerous, but it was the only path forward. Far across the stars, the Union prepared for its counterblow. Enormous factories thundered with production, entire sectors drained dry to fuel the war effort. The council demanded absolute loyalty, silencing dissent with brutal precision. But cracks spread faster than they could be sealed. Ships deserted. Colonies resisted. And still, whispers spread, if humanity can fight, so can we. High Captain Zorth, torn between loyalty and truth, stood before the council once again. His voice was weary, but unyielding. You call them savages, but they are not savages. They are survivors. You think them reckless, but they are deliberate. Every strike they make tears not just at your fleets, but at your empire's heart. You are fighting a war of attrition, and humanity is teaching the galaxy how to fight it with them. The moderator's eyes burned. Enough of your warnings, Captain. Humanity will be extinguished, and so will their allies. That is the only path. But Zorth saw the fear behind those words. And fear, once planted, never truly vanished. In the void, humanity's fleets pressed forward. They struck supply lines, liberated colonies, and sowed chaos behind Union lines. Their soldiers, ordinary men and women fused with desperate innovation, fought with a fury that shook the stars. And as they fought, alliances grew. Entire species once scattered now stood with them. What began as Earth's struggle had transformed into something far greater, a coalition of the oppressed, united under one banner. The Union had ruled with fear for centuries. Humanity offered something stronger. Hope. One night, Kane stood alone in the war chamber. The map of the galaxy burned above him, half in red, half flickering with shifting lights of rebellion. His reflection shimmered in the hologram, a lone figure standing against an empire. General Rao entered quietly. The galaxy is watching us, Admiral. To them, we are more than human now. We are the voice they've been waiting for. Kane's voice was low, steady, certain. Then we cannot falter. If we fall, the galaxy falls with us. But if we endure... He looked at the stars glowing above. Then the Union will not survive the storm we have unleashed. The war had consumed the galaxy. Worlds burned, fleets shattered, and empires trembled. What began as a single defiance from Earth had grown into a storm no one could contain. The Union, once untouchable, now fought for survival. Entire sectors slipped from its grasp. The fear it had ruled with for centuries was crumbling, replaced by rebellion, by fire, by hope. And at the center of it all stood humanity. Admiral Kane stood aboard the Indomitable, staring into the void. Around him, the bridge hummed with quiet urgency. Officers reported victories and losses, rebellions rising and falling, allies joining and dying. It was a war of endurance now, and Kane knew it. Humanity could not match the Union's endless numbers. But humanity did not need to. They only needed to last long enough for the Union to break itself. On a distant battlefield, Terran forces clashed once more with Union legions. Enhanced soldiers charged through firestorms, their cybernetic limbs carrying them farther than flesh should. Dreadnoughts roared across the void, their cannons tearing holes in the Union's mighty fleets. Colonies rose in revolt, striking their masters while humanity struck their armies. Everywhere, chaos spread. And everywhere, the cry echoed the same: we fight because humanity fights. High Captain Zorth, watching from the sidelines of history, knew the truth at last. Humanity had done the impossible. They had transformed themselves from survivors of a forgotten world into leaders of a galactic revolution. He whispered to his crew as another Union fleet burned. This is not humanity's war anymore. This is the galaxy's war. And humanity has given us the courage to fight it. His words carried the weight of prophecy. The Union tried one last desperate strike. They gathered their greatest fleets, their strongest armies, their deadliest weapons. The moderator promised the council that this battle would end it all, that Earth would be shattered, its people silenced forever. But when their armada arrived, they did not find fear. They found resistance. Human fleets, bolstered by alien allies, surged forward in unity. Battles raged across dozens of systems at once. Worlds rose in flames, not in destruction, but in rebellion. For every planet the Union crushed, 2 more slipped free from its grasp. And slowly, the impossible became reality. The Union was losing. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Kane watched as the last Union flagship cracked apart in a storm of fire. Silence filled the comms. After centuries of domination, the unthinkable had happened. The Union's fleets were broken. Its grip on the galaxy shattered. Kane stood tall, his voice carrying across the ship. This war is not over. It will not end in a single day. But today, we have proven that empires can fall. And that freedom, once lit, cannot be extinguished. His crew rose in salute. Around him, battle-worn officers stood straighter, their eyes fierce with pride. Earth had not just survived. It had changed the galaxy forever. And as news of the victory spread, the stars themselves seemed brighter. Across countless worlds, voices rose in unison. Species long divided now stood together. Not because they feared the Union, but because humanity had reminded them how to hope.